I think that the Pakistani government is basically abdicating to the Taliban and to the extremists. But I do want to talk about Pakistan, which I think poses a mortal threat to the security and safety of our country and the world.
And that was U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton speaking before the House Foreign Affairs Committee last week. On today's program, we're discussing the implications of the spreading Taliban influence in Pakistan. Joining me from New York is Yasmin Hassan, a Pakistani lawyer and Deputy Director of Programs at Equality Now, an international women's rights organization based in New York. And here with me in Washington, D.C., I'm joined by Farhana Ali, Senior Fellow at the Center for Advanced Studies on Terrorism and a former U.S. government official. Let's get back to our discussion. And Yasmin Hassan, if I can ask you just to comment on what Hillary Clinton was saying there. I mean, using the term, using that term that the Pakistani government has is basically abdicating to the Taliban and the extremists. Is that kind of comment going to help or hinder the situation, do you think?
I think in using, first let me get to, there is a big convergence of US and Pakistan interest in dealing with the Taliban, right? And I think that if handled well, this can be a very good and quick operation with benefits on both sides. When we use language like that, maybe it's a little bit counterproductive because it puts people's backs up. So I think she might be right in substance, but politically to talk about it in those terms is not helpful.
Let me put an email to you, Yasmin, let me put an email to you that came in from the United Arab Emirates from a viewer by the name of Niaz, who wrote in saying, "It is clear that the government's Swat deal has been made from the position of weakness. I think that the danger of the Taliban eventually taking over Pakistan is very real." Now, what inherent dangers do you see in the chance that the Taliban might be legitimized by these sort of deals then?
Yeah, and that was the danger we pointed out when we got involved, and Equality Now got involved in this issue. There was no peace deal on the table. It was only the Taliban burning the girls' schools. And we saw the very slippery road ahead once this was allowed to go on. And I think the danger is real. It is there. But I know that, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people in Pakistan, particularly in Lahore and Islamabad, and civil society and now the government is very keen on taking very active steps to contain this, because already you've seen what's happened in Bunair, you've seen what's happened in Dir. This is not containable just by doing peace deals.
Right.
So this sort of has to end, and there has to be strong message sent by the Pakistani government to the Taliban that this cannot be tolerated.
Well, let's get a caller on the line. We've got from the United Kingdom, Istikhar is with us. Istikhar, what would you like to ask?
It is just thanks, Riz Khan, for my giving me the opportunity. The one important thing is we are missing two things here. I think one is we have to have a short history lesson that these Taliban and Al-Qaeda and all these Mujahideen, they were created in 1980s, and then the whole West left when Soviet Union left Afghanistan. That's the one point we have to keep in mind. The number two is at the moment what we are saying, and Farhana Ali mentioned about brutal justice. In Pakistan, there is no justice. There's elitist government with journals, backed up by the West, and these Taliban, who do not have any inkling, as far as I know, for Islam, but they stand up for justice.
Okay. Well,
and then there's an appeal for that.
Istikhar, let me put that to Farhana Ali. This is one of the issues that a lot of people, critics have, is that, I mean, the West, the US in particular, is to some degree responsible for what's out there in the first place, and is really having to just clean up its own mess, and left the place without any sense of justice in the first instance.
Well, there's certainly an argument to be made to that effect, and that's why it's very important today to focus on sustaining the U.S.-Pakistan, not short-term, but a long-term relationship, because what's happened in the past certainly has consequences for the present and will have implications for the future. And that certainly is there. When I was in Pakistan talking to the head of police in Islamabad, what he told me is that we have these leftover jihadis, and so they clearly recognize it as a problem for the Pakistani society now to try to either integrate these individuals into mainstream society. In some cases, they're not integrated, and for very valid reason, according to the Pakistanis. Remember, to Pakistan, India still remains a menace and a great threat, and so you have most of the forces along the India-Pakistan border rather than to the other front. But I think what we need is, the other point I want to make, this is not just a US and Pakistan problem. This is a regional issue. It's a regional, therefore it requires a regional solution. And so the yes?
Well, I was going to say, it doesn't help that Gordon Brown describes, the crucible of terror. This is like going back to George W. Bush's expressions such as axis of evil and
Yes.
so on.
Yeah, those are very harsh terms, and I think also to the caller's point, we have to put this into context, and even going back to the term of Talibanization, and what are we really trying to, who are we really trying to target? And if you speak to one of the dangers of Talibanization, it's not only civil society, but it's the political secular force in the Pashtun, the tribal areas. And that, according to a political officer who was in the tribal areas, sent me an email this morning saying, Farhana, we don't have a political force because our political forces have been severely weakened by this government's action in taking on this peace deal.
Let's get Shaukat on the line from the United Kingdom. Shaukat, thanks for your patience. What would you like to ask?
Yeah, hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, isn't one of the reasons of success of Talibanization is to blame for the government and the ruling class in Pakistan? They share no common values with the 70% of uneducated people and vast majority of poor people. And that's where the Taliban gets their success from. Thank
Interesting.
you.
Okay, I'll put that to Yasmin Hassan. There's an argument, and it's been put in other ways as well, that perhaps it's the disconnect between the ruling elite and the majority of Pakistan's population, which is poor, that actually fuels this kind of polarization in society that leads to the Talibanization we're talking about.
And that's true. I've heard that from a lot of Pakistanis also, where, you know, initially the Taliban movement was seen almost as a grassroots level movement, and it was fueled by the drone attacks and the feeling, I mean, already there's marginalization, there's joblessness, there's a feeling of, you know, powerlessness among a lot of youth in Pakistan, among a lot of people, and there's a feeling that all these, you know, development is not actually benefiting the masses. And that is an issue that has to be directly, you know, addressed and by the government. And I think all aid efforts that are being contemplated right now with the, you know, this enhanced partnership with Pakistan Act, that should be a big focus of that, and that has to be done really well. In, you know, that's where we need to focus on, because it is very dangerous to see this as a grassroots level movement, especially with human rights implications that it has.
Well, Yasmin, this email that came in just now by, sorry, not an email, it's an SMS that's just come in during the show, just been printed out for me here. I'm going to read it out to you. It's from Nairobi in Kenya, where an Abdusalam Ashkir is asking, are you against the Sharia law as a law system or the way it has been implemented?
I would definitely say as the way it is implemented, because I studied Sharia law in law school, and if I don't think pure form of Sharia law exists anywhere in the world. The principles of Sharia law and all, there could be justice under Sharia law. I'm not debating that. Whether on gender equality issues, there are some problems that Sharia and international human rights instruments don't quite match up in like a few areas. But I am not against Sharia as law, but the implementation of Sharia nearly all over the world has severe problems.
Now, let me just, for our viewers, remind everyone that before the discussion, we had a result of the, before we carry on with the discussion more, there's a chat room poll that we had just before the break where we asked, what are the implications of religious rule in the Swat Valley? Just so you know, 32% of you said it would create peace and stability. You chose that option. 32% also chose the option that said it would cause oppression of women's rights, while 35% of you said it would cause a breakdown of law and order in Pakistan. So that was the result of the poll. Thank you very much for those of you that took part in the chat room poll. We have on the line from China, Jude. Thank you very much for being on the line. It's, I know it's late for you there. What's your question, please?
Riz, thank you for having me on the line.
Pleasure.
I want to know, Pakistan, being an Islamic country, and the Taliban standing for representing Islam, why can't they be part of the democratic process in Pakistan?
It's okay. I'll put this to Farhana Ali. Is there any argument that says the Taliban could be organized enough to become some kind of political party or force, and then would be dealt with in a more, say, legitimate way, or could be dealt with in a way that might actually shape it a little more naturally, if you like?
There are a number of scholars, and there's a wealth of literature actually that exists that looks at how to end terrorism. In fact, my former organization, RAND Corporation, by my colleagues, an entire study on how terrorism ends. And so it includes political participation of these organizations. The trouble with the Taliban is that many these hardcore Islamists do not want to be part of the political process in Pakistan. In fact, they have considered it un-Islamic, undemocratic, or un-Islamic, and therefore it does not exist in their mind. So they have created what's called a parallel reality, a parallel system, which is actually, even prior to the quote Taliban, has existed for centuries in their own tribal structure. And that is really why this has become an enormous problem today, because they've already gained legitimacy through by this region becoming an autonomous, having its own autonomy.
Hamza's on the line from the United Kingdom. Hamza, what would you like to ask?
Yeah, hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hi, walaikum salam.
Okay, I just want to put a point my view across to
Very
you.
quickly, please. We don't have a lot.
In Israel, the Hamas were elected by the people, and Israel, I mean, we all know what happened to Hamas. They've destroyed the whole country and held it to siege. Why is it when people or Muslims decide a system which suits them, everybody objects to it? I mean, especially America or Britain. Do they fear Islamic system?
Because we only have like literally 30 seconds. I'm putting this to Yasmin. 30 seconds, sorry, a short answer here. But there is this argument that people say that if someone, if a group is democratically supported or elected, it should be allowed to thrive.
Well, I mean, you have to also see what are the forces of democracy. Who is voting? What are the precedents for, somebody contesting elections? I mean, we come from a human rights organization. If there is a group that has massive human rights violations, I don't think that can be democratically elected.
All right. I would thank, well, Yasmin Hassan and Farhan Ali, thank you very much for taking part in this debate. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for being with us. On the next show, we look at the first 100 days of the Obama administration. Before the election, we spoke with a cross-section of Democrat and Republican African-American students from Howard University about their hopes from the new leadership. 5 months later, we speak to some more about their views on successes and failures. Join us for that. From me and the team, thanks for being with us.